Welcome to tonight's video on section 1-3. We're going to start out by talking about finding the distance between 2 points. If you're talking about on the number line, you always take the second point, basically the larger number, and subtract the smaller number. And remember, distance is always positive, so you're going to take the absolute value of that. So for example, r is -3 minus -6. So -3 minus -6 is +3, and the absolute value of that is 3. So in the next one, it says use the number line to find ax. Well, 3 is x minus -5, so that's 3 plus 5, which is 8. Absolute value of that is also 8, which is B. Now, if you're finding the distance on a coordinate plane using the distance formula is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So for example, here, if I let this be x1 and y1 and this be x2 and y2, I would take 3 minus -4 squared plus -1 minus 1 squared. So 3 minus -4 is 7 squared plus -2 squared. 7 squared is 49 plus 4. So the square root of 53 is the distance between E and F. And that's approximately 7.28 if you were asked to put that in your calculator. Finding the distance between -3, 4 and 1, 2. So once again, here's x1 and y1. Here's x2 and y2. So you're going 2 minus 4 squared plus 1 minus 3 squared. Well, 2 minus 4 is -2 squared. And 1 minus -3 is 4 squared. -2 squared is 4, plus 4 is 16. 4 plus 16 is 20, so we have the square root of 20. To find the midpoint of any number on a number line, you take the average of the two coordinates. So x2 plus x1 divided by 2, that'll give you the midpoint. So here it says Marco places a couch so that its end is perpendicular and it's 5 feet away from the wall. So if this is the wall and this is the couch here, so here's our couch, so it's 2.5 feet away from the wall. Now it's 90 inches wide, so converting 90 inches to feet, well, remember, there's 12 feet in an inch, 12 inches in a foot, so 90 divided by 12 gives you approximately 7.5 feet. So that means this is 7.5 feet, which means if this is 2.5 feet away from the wall, 2.5 plus 7.5 is going to give you 10 feet. So the endpoints are 2.5 and 10. So the midpoint of the couch back from the wall, that would be 2.5 plus 10 divided by 2. So it's 12.5 divided by 2, which is approximately 6.25 feet. This one here, the length of a drag racing strip is 1/4 of a mile long. Well, remember there's 5,280 feet is in 1 mile. So a quarter of a mile, 1/4 times 5,280 is approximately 1,320 feet. And it wants the midpoint. So 1,320 divided by 2 is 660 feet. B. Now the midpoint formula in the coordinate plane, that's where you'll take the two x's, add them together and divide by 2. And then you'll take the two y's, add them together and divide by 2. And that'll give you the midpoint coordinate. So for example here, this is x1 and y1, and this is x2 and y2. So you have 8 plus negative 14 divided by 2, and you have negative 6 plus 12 divided by 2. Well, then you have negative 6 divided by 2 and 6 divided by 2. So you have negative 3 and 3. That is your midpoint for G and H. So if you look at the next question, it says x is negative 2, 3, so that's x1 and y1. Here's your x2 and y2. So you have negative 2 plus negative 8 divided by 2, and 3 plus negative 9 divided by 2. So you have negative 10 divided by 2 and negative 6 divided by 2, which gives you negative 5 and negative 3. So it's B. Alright, so finding the coordinates of an endpoint. So here they give you the midpoint. They say E is the midpoint of DF, and they give you one endpoint, but you don't know what D is. You just know D is X and Y. But what you do know is that X plus negative 5 divided by 2, because this would be your x1 and y1 here. You could call this x2 and y2. Is equal to the midpoint of negative 6, because this is your midpoint of the x. And then for the y's, you could say that y plus negative 3 divided by 2 is equal to 4. Then you can multiply by 2 to get rid of the fraction. So you get x minus 5 equals negative 12. You add 5, and you get x equals negative 7. And then here you do the same thing. You multiply by 2. You get y minus 3 equals 8. Add 3, and you get y equals 11. So the coordinates of D are negative 7 and 11. Finding the coordinates of R, same kind of question. So R is x and y. So x plus negative 1 divided by 2 is equal to 8, because 8 is the midpoint for the x. And y plus 5 divided by 2 is equal to negative 3, because negative 3 is the midpoint of n. So then we multiply by 2. So it's x minus 1 equals 16. Add 1, so x equals 17. Do the same thing over here, multiply by 2. So you get y plus 5 equals negative 6. Subtract 5, and you get y equals negative 11. So the midpoint is 17 and negative 11. Or sorry, the endpoint, not the midpoint. Alright, so the next concept is we're using algebra to find the measures. It says, what is the measure of PR if Q is the midpoint of PR? So that means these two are the same, because a midpoint divides a segment into two congruent segments. So this is going to be 6 minus 3x. So you're going to have 6 minus 3x plus 6 minus 3x equals the whole thing of 14x plus 2. So 12 minus 6x equals 14x plus 2. Bring the x's over to one side. So you get 20x. Bring the numbers over to the other side. Oh, sorry, that's a 2, not a 12. So it becomes 10. Divide by 20, and you get x equals 1/2. So finding the measure of PR, it's 14 times 1/2 plus 2. Half of 14 is 7, plus 2 is 9. So same thing here, using what is the measure of AC if B is the midpoint? So this is going to be 2a minus 1. So 2a minus 1 plus 2a minus 1 is equal to the whole thing of 3a plus 1. So 4a minus 2, when you combine like terms, subtract the 3a, and then add 2. So a is equal to 3. And then to find AC, it's 3 times 3 plus 1. So 9 plus 1 is 10. So it's B. All right. So you can do the extra practice on your own. The answers are underneath. Any questions, please feel free to ask me at any time. Have a good evening.